showcasing local talent, professionals, and everyday people making Salt Lake City what it is today. It's time for another episode of the I Am Salt Lake podcast.
So how do you think the live show went on Friday night? Do you think it went pretty good?
I do think it went good. I think we had some technical difficulties in the beginning.
Yeah, and you'll hear that. We're planning on putting that episode up next week. But I was just kind of curious how you thought of the show. I mean, we had a great panel.
We did.
And my only thing is I wish we'd had a little more time.
Yeah, we only got to like maybe 3 or 4 questions that we had, which is great because everybody had so much wonderful input, but we had so much more we wanted to talk about.
I really like doing this podcast in a live format. There's something about the energy of the people in the room, the audience watching, just even that anxiety preparing up until the live show.
Kind of makes you feel alive, like you're about to jump off a cliff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like a natural drug.
It is. It really is.
And so I want to, let's take a moment. Thank everybody. If you're listening, thank you so much for coming out last Friday night to the Sorensen Unity Center.
Sorry I cried.
The Domestic Violence Uncensored panel.
Yeah.
We met a lot of
awesome.
really, really nice, cool, supportive people.
Yeah.
People, I even want to bring them back on the podcast future episodes.
Yes. And I have to admit, I really bonded with some of the survivors there because we have a very dark, twisted sense of humor about the things that we've gone through. And it was really nice to meet other people like that because that's pretty rare.
It's what you have to do to get through life.
It is. And I think, honestly, I enjoyed it so much that part of me thought about starting a podcast dedicated to domestic violence and talking about it and like bringing victims on every episode or people who help or whatever. But then I was like, I have too many things to do. You can't do it, Chrissy. But it would be such a great project.
It would, even if you do one episode a month. That's what I tell people.
You know what? That's a great idea.
Any podcast, if you have an idea, start it up. You don't need to do it every week. You do need to commit to it.
You do.
But you don't need to do it every week.
Every month or every other week.
So,
solid point.
I just wanted to kind of bring that live show up because it's kind of one of the more recent things in yours and mine journey here with this
It was
podcast.
very different for us.
So, and we're going to talk more about that when we put the live episode up.
Right.
I just wanted to bring it up. But welcome to episode 247, everybody.
Welcome back.
247 episodes, Chrissy.
Yeah.
I'm Chris Hollifield.
I'm Chrissy Shelley.
On this episode of the podcast, we sit down with Margaret Schlachter from Dirt in Your Skirt blog and podcast. She really had a fascinating story to share.
Yeah. Oh, man.
I know you really bonded with her.
Oh, I have a total girl crush on her. Huge.
I was really excited to see that when we were chatting. I mean, you're going to hear that in the conversation we're going to play here in a minute. But I mean, she does a blog, a podcast. She's a runner. She's an author, even an urban farmer.
Her backyard sounds so cool. I kind of want to sneak in at night and like grab some honey and.
Well, yeah, we do. We get a little bit in depth about honey and local honey and the challenges of that. I didn't even really realize that.
It was really enlightening. And like, I don't know how she has time to do all the stuff she does. It's really interesting to talk to her.
And then she mentioned she gets like 10 hours of sleep at night.
I don't know. That doesn't make sense. She must be typing in her sleep.
You even share your story of when you did the Spartan race. So that's fun.
I think the proper word is attempted the Spartan race.
So you're going to hear that. Also want to mention before we get into the conversation with Margaret, Ryan, he's one of our Patreon supporters. He joined the conversation. Really cool new feature that we have here in I Am Salt Lake. We're going to share more about that after the interview, but you're going to hear Ryan has some questions and joins in on the conversation.
Which was super useful because he had way interesting questions that you and I wouldn't have been able to come up with.
Oh, no, yeah. He talks about skiing and all of that stuff, which you and I aren't skiers.
They do the outdoorsy.
Before we get into the conversation, let's give some love to our sponsors. I know you love them, Chrissy. I love them. And if you're listening, you probably even love them. Oleo Skin and Beard, great local company right here from Salt Lake City.
Yeah, you just brought soap home yesterday.
So they're making all these great soaps.
Which is awesome.
Face, body, just bar soap, which, I mean, of course, they're out there. You see them at the farmers markets and stuff like that. But these are really nice scents.
They're really nice. And it's not just like random homemade soap. It's full of like really thoughtful ingredients, very healthy. I have to admit something.
What's that?
Before they made bar soap, I used to use your beard soap sometimes.
Oh, the beard soap.
As a body soap.
Well, I actually found out that they're actually switching over some of the beard soaps because that one really dries the skin out. So I apologize.
We don't smell good.
Oleoskin.com is their website. You can buy all your products there. I know the heavy market season is kind of slowing down. Granted, we're going to have the winter markets and all of that, but you can always buy directly from their website. Oleoskin.com is their website where you can learn more about the products, buy the products right there online, and support a great local company.
Yeah.
Distillery 36, we're drinking some tonight.
Of course.
Of course. We always have to do that when we're podcasting, whenever we're... even when we're out and about, we're always asking the bars, do you carry Brigham rum?
It's true.
I mean, that's our first question, and if they don't, at least it gets it in their head.
Yeah, like maybe you need to be carrying it.
Distillery36.com is their website. You can pretty much buy, I think, really in any of the local state liquor stores here in Utah. I don't think they've expanded outside of Utah. I know there's talks of it.
Right, yeah.
Great local companies, and we love them for sponsoring I Am Salt Lake Podcast. So check them out. You can also, there's links on the website and stuff for those guys as well. So, but I want to jump in. Let's jump into that conversation that we had with Margaret Schlachter from dirtinyourskirt.com. Let's find out her story. Thanks for listening. Today on the podcast, Margaret Schlachter from Dirt in Your Skirt podcast blog. We're going to get into all of that. We're actually joined by Ryan Prince as well. He is one of our Patreon supporters. He went for the gold reward where he gets to come and hang out in our office while we're recording. This is the first time we've done this.
Yep.
So it's going to be a little bit different for the podcast. Hopefully Margaret can kind of keep up with it.
I don't think she can keep up with us.
We're going to open it up near the end. And Ryan, if he has any questions. But we have a couple more spots over there on the couch if anybody else wants to join him on future episodes of the podcast and check out our Patreon that way. But anyways, Margaret, thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. We were actually chatting a little bit before about your move here to Utah.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know you shared that. I'm going to have you share that again. What brought you to Utah? Like, of all states, right? Utah.
Well, if you had told me 5 years ago I was going to live in Utah, I would have said I was working in the ski industry, so I would have said, oh, this is a good place to visit. I'm not going to live there ever. And now I've been living here since 2012. So I actually was living in Vermont on a ski area.
Where in Vermont?
Killington, Vermont.
Beautiful state. I've been there before.
So
beautiful. Have you been there, Chrissy?
I have not. I've been to a lot of places on the East Coast, but not Vermont.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. It is beautiful. I mean, I have a tattoo of it on the side of my ribs. So I love
commitment.
Vermont. But I met my, I guess now fiance. It's kind of weird. We just got engaged a couple of months ago, so I'm still like adjusting to that word.
Well, congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So we met at this race called the Death Race, which is this crazy endurance race that, let's see, the New York Times called it a cross between Jackass and Survivor. It's this race that they don't tell you when it starts. They don't tell you when it ends. They don't tell you what you have to do. You just show up and they give you a gear list of stuff you have to bring.
Huh.
And it's totally bizarre. Like the gear list, I did it in 2012. I didn't finish it, but I did 21 hours of it. And the gear list was like an axe. You have to bring all the food you might need. Normal stuff for an endurance kind of event, but then you add in like an axe, a bag of human hair, Yeah, I went to my hairdresser and I was like, can you just put some hair in a bag? So it's this crazy race.
And you
like,
just put some hair in my bag.
in this-
like that's
in
an
this, like,
everyday
baggie.
thing. That's
Yeah.
an everyday.
creepy almost
sure.
stuff. I mean, people are like scrambling. You can imagine.
Do you feel like I'm going in the woods to die now?
You feel like it was, 1 year they had them bring 5 pounds of onions and they had to carry 5 pounds of onions. So anyways, it's this race that this guy named Joe DeSena and his other former partner, Andy Weinberg, started. And it's just this thing. The whole idea is they want to take you as a human and like an onion, peel away all the layers till you see what's at the center of who you are.
Oh my
Whether
gosh.
like when you face adversity, are you going to cry? Are you going to hit somebody? Are you going to run away? Like what? So they that's what they want you to do. Not many people finish it. It's this crazy race. But anyways, my fiance's brother was big in the Spartan race racing scene, which comes around here once a year in the obstacle racing world. And part of this $100,000 challenge that they put out, this death race is kind of an offshoot of Spartan race. And if you finished all 15 races they had that year in 2011 and the death race, you would win $100,000. Wow.
Did anyone do it?
So my fiance's brother did not finish the death race, so he didn't win the $100,000, but he won every other race that year.
Are you for real?
Yeah. Yeah.
What is the most you've won on a race? Have you won large amounts of money like that on a race?
I've won like $1,000 here and there, but
Because I was going to say, I'm going to start doing races.
Good
if
luck.
you can win $100,000.
yeah, actually, Hobie Call, who's the name of this athlete, he just won the Spartan Race World Championships last weekend. So this is probably going to
my
be out in a
gosh.
couple of weeks, but he just won $15,000 last weekend in Lake Tahoe.
Holy crap! I saw on your blog site that's about running. Did you actually write an ebook about how to survive a Spartan race?
I wrote a print book. It's a full,
it's a print book. Okay,
through
'cause I was
Tidal
like,
Publishing.
Well, let's get into that in just a minute because
yeah.
I want to build up a
Okay.
little bit of the story. So
I met him. So I should say we
Yeah.
met each other. We saw each other. We both thought that it's funny. He said, that's the type of woman I'd like to date. And I said, wow, that's a good looking guy. And then we kind of kept crossing paths for the next couple of months. And then around December 2011, we started dating. And then, we dated for almost a year, long distance. And then somebody's got to move at some
Yeah.
point, or you have to break up.
Yeah.
so he's like, honey, move to Sugar House.
In a way, I mean, we kind of talked about who's going to move, and I didn't own a house. He owned a house. My job's mobile, and I was a professional athlete at the time too. And there's great training here. So
yeah.
I said, I'll just pick up and move, and
Sure.
and yeah, I'll just try a new place. I'm up for something new.
And so,
Did the altitude hit you pretty hard?
It was okay. I think at first, I think I adapted pretty quickly to it, and I'm pretty used to it now.
Yeah, I bet.
I go back east. All my family's east, so I go back east, and I'm like, oh, this is nice.
It's like pure oxygen.
Yeah.
because it is probably tougher to run in the mountains versus like Vermont, maybe. Right? Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Well, the air is so much thinner. It's harder to breathe when you're up in the mountains doing things.
I joke around that. So here in Salt Lake, I think we're at like 45-ish, depending on what part of the city you live in. The Killington is the second highest peak in Vermont, and it's 42, 41. So we used to joke around in our backyard in Sugar House is a little bit on a hill. So I'm like, I'm at the top of Killington. I'm above Killington as I like
That's
run
awesome.
in our backyard. just like walk in our backyard.
Do you ever
from one
taunt
point to
people
the
back
other.
home with that? Like, take recordings of yourself saying that and send it to them?
I think in the beginning I probably did something silly like that. I've lived here now for 4 years, so
So you've got
You're
a pretty
over
good
it.
taste of. Well, let's talk about Dirt in Your Skirt. It started as a blog. How long ago did it start as a blog?
yeah. So it started as my own personal blog accountability website in 2011. Early 2011, I ran this race called Tough Mudder. I crossed the finish line and they go, you've qualified for World's Toughest Mudder, which is this 24-hour version of the race. So the normal race is like 10 miles. This is a 10-mile race that you just keep running the course over and over again as many times as you can do it in 24 hours. And back then it was in New Jersey.
Gosh, it's like doing laps.
See, and I started Well, I mean, I've been running on and off for a few years, believe it or not. I know I don't look like it, but I'm lucky to get 2 miles in before I feel like dying. I mean, that's 10 miles just round and round. That is
this
ridiculous.
was in December in New Jersey, in and out of water.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So anyway, so I just started a website because I'm like, I was coaching alpine skiing. I was working in the ski industry. I was working for a ski academy. So kind of like the winter school up in Park City or Romark down here. That's part of Roland Hall. And I knew at being a coach, you've got to have something to hold you accountable. So I said, I'll start a website. I'd
just put it out there for the world to hold you accountable, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And I had the Facebook page, and in the morning I'd be like, I'm going to go run 2 miles today. And then I'd go run 2 miles. And that night would sit down in front of my computer and write about like whatever. Like some days
what
I'd
it was like running 2 miles.
Yeah. Some days I'd be like, I saw a squirrel, or I had this thing, and here's the printout of where I ran, and this was what the weather was like. And then it got longer and longer, and
you started building traction, people following you and engaging.
Yeah, and nobody else was writing about the sport of obstacle racing, at least from a women's point of view, when I was doing it. So I was pretty much, if you tried to find some information, I was one of the only people. And, like anything, it's like even with podcasting now, you get a new piece of equipment, I just wrote about it. I got a new pair of shoes, I wrote about it. I got a new, so then it just kind of grew from there. So it was more than just me running. And then it became a resource for people that it's like, oh, well, that shoe's cool, or that's whatever.
We should do that with cool. I Am So. I've never thought about writing about the podcast equipment. I don't know. I guess people would find that interesting, right? I don't know.
A certain group of people. That's all you need.
I find it interesting.
Well, sure. No, I would too. That's fantastic. Gosh, okay. I'm gonna steal that idea. But
go for it. No.
So what made you? Okay, I'm gonna jump probably quickly, and I don't know if you have any questions, Chrissy. Here, what made you decide to do a podcast of the dirt in your skirt?
Yeah. So for years, I've been profiling women on the site too, and doing like quick things, but I am a podcast geek, nerd. I've been listening to podcasts since 2005, I think.
I love pretty much since it started.
Pretty much. And I distinctly remember I drove across the country by myself, like pretty quickly out of college. And I found this podcast called More Hip Than Hippie. It was, totally random. It was these two women in Chico, California. I can't even find it now. It's like disappeared. So it's gone to the archives of
Isn't that sad when a podcast that you really like and you think is good and you'd like to revisit just goes down?
It just disappeared. It was just these two women back in 2005, 6, that time period, talking about green living, which is totally...
That was before the time.
Yeah. I mean, they were talking about like reusable shopping bags and just stuff that's totally normal now.
Yeah.
But I listened to them, and then that's kind of, and obviously then you listen to all the NPR type things, like This American Life and those. But I just remember these two women, More Hip Than Hippie.
That is so, I'm sad. They're like, it seems like they would be really doing amazing if they had kept it up.
Yeah. And
they'd almost be leaders in, what the hippies do.
It's kind of like any podcast. It's a lot of work.
It is.
And a lot of times we don't get the recognition and the support that we need.
It's true. It's work, and it's expensive. And if you feel like you're just doing it and not getting anything out of it, then
you can
shut
only
it down.
Do passion projects for so long.
Yeah.
Or you can keep doing them.
Yeah.
But
depending on how much passion you have left.
Yeah. But yeah. So I was like, I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. I probably have 20, I don't know. I have a ton of different podcasts on my iPod or on my phone right now. I just love taking podcasts with you. I mean, it's such a portable medium when we can take anywhere. You can take it when you go for a run. You can take anywhere.
Yeah.
Which a blog post, you can sit and read it. I guess you can read it on your phone, but you're not gonna. I don't know. I just love the.
You can multitask really well.
I have a hard time keeping up with blogs because again, you have to sit down and read it.
Yeah,
versus
but
just play
they're great resources when you go to Google to ask a question or to find something specific. But yeah, that's why I love podcasts and books on tape. Mm-hmm. You just can keep your brain going all the time, no matter where you are.
Yeah, and in my space of kind of the obstacle racing world, we kind of had for a long time, there was like one guy, and it was kind of his thing that he was the podcaster of the industry. And now there's like, I don't know, 6 or 7 different people. And mine's not necessarily just obstacle racing industry at all. But I was like, why am I just saying that this is this person's thing? If I want to do it, I can just do it. And that's kind of the way I live my life, is that if I want to do something, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I might crash.
What are people going to say? No, you can't.
Yeah. Like, there is no person kind of telling you, like, you cannot podcast, you cannot write a blog, you cannot. That's the great thing about it. You can just start it. No one might listen to it, but you can do it.
It's true.
What's been harder for you, a blog or a podcast?
You know what was the hardest? I had a web series for a little while, and I think that's the hardest. I did
A web series. What do you like through the podcast?
I also am editor-in-chief of this website called mudrunguide.com, and it's the largest trafficked website in the world for obstacle course racing. So the owner and I, before I started working for them, we had this kind of joint project where I had this show called Obstacle and Adventure Weekly. And I went around and I did interviews with people in the industry and in the sport, and then edited it all together. I'll tell you what, video, you have to look nice-ish. Yeah. I mean, you have to be cognizant of what you look like. You've got mics, you got the other person, what they look like. There's a whole bunch of other things about if you're only shooting with one mic or one camera and you're doing an interview. So then you fake the questions afterwards. So the whole time the podcast or the video is on the one person you're interviewing, then they leave the room. You turn the camera around, you ask all the questions to a blank chair.
Oh my gosh, that's
and then
what
edit it all together.
Holy cow!
And yeah, it's that was probably the most work. It
sounds like
that sounds like a ton of work. I think I would give up. I'd be like, nope, no. I have to put on makeup. No.
Oh,
yeah, so
ahead.
that was fun. I mean, it was really fun, and I learned a lot, and I like video editing, and I like doing through Mud Run Guide just like Skype interviews with people, quick like 10-minute things now. So I would say that is the hardest. And then writing and podcasting I think they're about the same, but they're different. Mm-hmm. Because we're speaking right now, and you can either keep it the way it is, or you can get down and edit every and out afterwards.
Yeah.
Which I used to be really anal like that in the beginning days of this podcast. I used to, it's 8 hours, 6 hours to edit a podcast episode. And I go back and listen to it, and I'm like, it actually sounds worse, I think, because I was so ridiculous with
like you take out the natural flow of a conversation when you do that.
Yeah. So and in writing, you have to make sure your grammar works. Sure. Or at least it flows in a sense that it makes enough sense people will read it.
Do you ever sit so like grammar is changing, it's kind of changed over time, and the whole people have started to make fun of me for doing double spacing after a period, stuff like that.
Yeah, that doesn't exist
and
anymore.
I'm like,
really.
I know, but I didn't no one told me. No one. And so now I'm like paralyzed when I write. I'm like, I don't know what rules there are anymore. Like half the stuff I learned in high school does not apply. How do you keep up with that?
I think that's a great thing about the online medium. Like I've written for a couple different print publications, and obviously I wrote a book too. But I think that when you work online, you have a little more flexibility. My writing's always been more conversation style. And then the news, when I write news, it's more cut and dry, kind of boring, that sort of stuff. But when I just write for myself and on Dirty Your Skirt, it's more conversational. I just sort of let it flow.
That's cool.
Kind of whatever.
Yeah. If they're going to read it, they're going to be absorbed in the content and not, hopefully absorbed in the content and not staring at what you did wrong.
Exactly.
If anything is wrong.
Exactly. And it's funny, your double spacing thing. I just finished my master's at the U.
Oh, wow.
I had 2 classes left for like 4 years. So,
what did you get your master's in?
Education leadership. So it's like an MBA of education.
That's awesome.
It's what I used to do. I used to work in the education, the ski world, all that sort of stuff before I do the stuff I do now.
Wow. And you just kind of went into journalism?
Yeah. I call it my accidental career jump because I started the blog as just a personal blog. Then I kind of made it into a website. And then from there, I was having success in my own racing. So I was getting some sponsors to race. And then in 2012, when I quit my day job, I had a nutrition company sponsoring me full-time to be a full-time athlete. Like, I joke around now. I never met her, but Ronda Rousey and I were on the same roster of pro athletes for this nutrition company at the time. And
Awesome.
How awesome would it have been to meet
I know.
Man.
Ronda Rousey?
I'd fight you.
I would just stand there and just go, "You're scary."
So did you feel like you were living your dream at that point? I mean, you quit your day job to just do this full time.
Oh, 100%. It
Yeah.
was 100%. I had always been an athlete. I was a ski racer growing up. I ski raced all the way through college. I played lacrosse in college as well, both D3. But yeah, totally. I mean, who doesn't want to be a quote unquote professional athlete where your day job is working out? And then writing on the side and having your own website.
I'd pay you to do that for me.
Wow.
So I lived the dream for a couple of years, and I was moved out here, and unfortunately got injured. This is the not so fun part about being a professional athlete. You get injured. It's the kind of industry kind of kept pushing beyond where all of a sudden everybody was a lot faster when I was healthy again. I sprained the inside and outside of my ankle at the same time on this trampoline obstacle, and was on crutches for over a month, and it took me a year to run without any pain and all that sort of stuff. So in that time, that was in 2013. So I had my year and change of living it, and then living on the
did
injured
sponsors
list.
drop you or put you on hold?
A lot stayed with me. They were really good at first, but in that time period of me being hurt, I started to do more writing. More people were like, "Hey, we want you to." I had an online column with Fitness RX for women for a little while. I was the industry expert for About.com for obstacleracing.about.com.
That's awesome.
For a while.
That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, so that was all fun. And so all that sort of stuff kind of was falling into place as I was injured, and kind of started to go the media route. And then since kind of, I'd say 2014-ish to now, I've been full on just media side of things. And I work out when I want to work out, and I go train when I want to, but I don't have that pressure, and I don't
That's
my
pretty
income
cool.
is not from a sponsor now, which is nice.
Talk about you mentioned a book, Chrissy.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about this book.
Survive
that you
Your
wrote.
First Spartan Race. Can I just say, I wish I had this book a year ago.
Yeah, that's right. Chrissy did a Spartan race
2 years ago, maybe.
2 years ago.
Oh my gosh, it was the worst thing I've ever tried to do in my entire life. No, I did it with my coworkers. We did a team, right?
Yeah.
And we made it. One coworker stayed with me because he felt guilty through maybe 4 obstacles, and then he carried me through the 5th one. And then
Gee, and I never heard this story.
you didn't hear the
No,
story?
I've never heard this
It was horrible
story.
because this is the guy that really wanted to do it, and he got everyone together, and then he felt guilty. He's like, "No, I'm the captain of our team. I won't leave a man behind." So he physically carried me
Over
through.
your shoulder, right? Like I'm picturing.
No,
throwing
what he
you
did
up
was
over your shoulder.
I had to
pushing you up
climb
over a
stuff.
wall
He
or
would
something?
grab my butt and hold me while I moved.
Of course.
But then afterwards, I'm like, I just can't keep going anymore. And he found a place for us to sneak out. So we were trying to sneak out of the race without anyone seeing us. And then we just sat and waited for hours and hours for everyone else to finish.
So this book then, what does it teach you how to do? Or what does it talk about?
So the book's called Obstacle Race Training. It's got the longest subtitle. It's how to beat any course, compete like a champion, and change your life. And for anybody that's ever interested in writing a book, if you have a publisher, the publisher picks the title of the book.
For real.
For real. So I wanted to call it Beyond the Mud. Just
That's way cooler.
I love that name too.
and it might be.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going to write another book and call it that. But they now make titles of books so that they are searchable for when you search for something online.
That makes sense. So on Amazon. Yeah.
It's a searchable
well,
thing.
makes sense, but that kind of sucks.
Yeah. So
Give it a long old subtitle. Let you name whatever you want for the main title.
exactly. But whatever. So this is a crazy story, and I think that nobody has this happen to them with books, and I know people that have been trying to publish books for years. Like I said, I quit my job. It was right around 4th of July in 2012. And I remember because I was with my family up in the Adirondack Mountains of New York. We've got a family place up there. And I told my family, I'm like, hey, I'm going to quit my job on Monday. When I get back to work, I'm done. I'm sick of my job. I've got sponsors. I can pay my rent. I can buy food. I can, they're paying some of my travel erasers. I'm not making much beyond that, but baseline covered. I've got my baseline covered.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, we thought you had a really good thing. You're like head of admissions, head of college placement at this private school, and you're 27 years old.
Wow.
Like, you've got a good job here. Like, we thought you've created this good life for yourself. And I'm like, yeah, but I always tell people it's like the Talking Head song where they're like, what is this? What is this beautiful life? The Days Go By song, where they're like,
I don't know if I've ever heard that song.
I know what song you're talking about.
Basically, the part of the lyrics are like, what is this house? Like, how did I get into this life? And I kind of felt like that. Like, I did everything you're supposed to do, climb the ladder that I was climbing.
But you weren't happy.
But I didn't even know that I didn't know how I got onto the ladder once I was climbing up it.
Like, you did all the things you were supposed to do, and then all of a sudden you're like, I'm supposed to be happy, right?
Yeah.
Like, they said if I did this, I would be happy.
Exactly. So I remember I sat on my computer and I wrote I guess I can't remember if it was a Sunday or a Monday. It was 4th of July weekend. So whenever the day before I went back into work was, I wrote this email that just said, hey, I'm going to work until the end of the month. I'm leaving. I want this to be good. Like, I am going to go pursue what I'm pursuing. I'm done.
Sure.
So send that out. Boom. And you're like, I just quit my job. You have this moment of, I just quit my job when I went into
undo.
work. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I did that. The very next day, I got an email through my website out of the blue from my original editor. My editor ended up changing halfway through my book, but his name is Bud Sperry, and he said, I work at Tuttle Publishing. We do like all of Bruce Lee's books. We've got an office in Hong Kong and an office in Vermont, which is totally random, and I still don't understand how that all works. But they're like, look, we want to know if you want to take your website and turn it into a book. And that was it. Like, and I thought it was, honestly, I kind of thought this was like, who does this? No one has this story. So at first I emailed him back and was like, okay, yeah, I'll meet with you. Like, kind of like, what? I don't know if this is even real.
Yeah.
And
because you never heard of this person before.
Never heard of this person. And I didn't even know Tuttle Publishing. They're actually a pretty well-known, they're not like the largest publisher in the world, but they're a well-known publisher. They have put out some, like I said, like it's like Bruce Lee's how to do karate books or something like that. Or, so the guy shows up though, we go to coffee. And he's like, well, I'll meet you at coffee. And he brings a stack of books. And he was like, these are all the books some of the books we've published. You can see what type of books we published.
Wow. And there were some names
like
that you were like,
pitch.
wow.
Yeah.
Dang.
And so he just said, and that was in July. We started that process. I got my contract in October, and I had until like February to hand in my full book. Done. Completed.
Wow. Was that stressful?
Unbelievably stressful. I mean, pieces of it are pieces that were in the website already, but you basically have to rewrite everything when you write a book.
Yeah, it seems like it. There's more of a structure to a book, and you have to adapt everything for that.
Exactly.
Did you do it the old-fashioned way with a typewriter? You bring the typewriter.
That would have been so badass. You just bring a stack of papers and put them on their desk.
That would have been really badass, but I did it in front of my MacBook Pro.
Okay. Well, hey, I would love to write a book.
This one.
So, I mean, you one-upped me there with the book.
But I wrote it so I wrote it, and it was funny. Somebody totally gave me a bad review, and they're like, oh, and they put a picture of it like being in a bathroom, and which is kind of funny because the way I wrote all the chapters is they're super short. You can pick it up. It's like a coffee table book. There's like 180 photos in it, all color. Mm-hmm. And so it's pretty much like a book you can pick up, read a little bit, put back down. So it's funny. Like, I actually was like, well, that's kind of funny because you could actually just read this in the bathroom.
It's a great bathroom book
where you read like a little bit and then you put it back and you read a little bit.
And they put a picture of it in the bathroom to be insulting.
Yeah. Yeah. So I kind of laughed at that, but no, the reviews have pretty much all been good.
Except that one.
Other than a few,
it's a compliment to take. I take my best books into the bathroom.
I was just going to say that. Really, you want your most interesting things in the bathroom because before phones, people sat and read things they wanted to read in the bathroom. Now they bring their. I'm just saying.
Reverse book. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's totally true. And so I wrote the book, and actually almost all the pictures that are I demonstrate how to do a bunch of exercises. We took all the photos at Ute CrossFit, which is just literally down the road from where we are in the studio right now.
Yeah, it's just right over here on 700 East there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So a bunch of the photos were taken here at Ute CrossFit. Some are from Vermont, some are in Utah, and
oh man, do you have like beautiful scenery in any of them?
There's a
like
ton of beautiful
outside training?
scenery. Yeah,
that's so cool.
Do you know? Can you pick up for Utah listeners? Is it in any of the local bookstores that you know of, or you don't think so?
I don't know. I have checked like Barnes and Noble, but you can always ask your local bookseller to order it because it is through a major publishing company. You know, go support your local bookseller. Go ask them to order it. They can order it.
Does any of that kick over to you at all?
I do get a small percentage of every sale.
What is the best way to get a sale for you?
You can order one actually directly off of Dirt in Your Skirt, and then it's signed, and I ship it from here in Salt Lake, so you probably get it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we have a lot of listeners outside of Salt Lake City, even outside of Utah, believe it or not. Mm-hmm. Can you believe that people outside of Utah have interest in Utah?
Outside of the United States, even.
Yeah. So I want to talk about you're an urban farmer.
We are.
I will, because, we communicated through Twitter, and you were telling me all these things that you do, and talk about that. I mean, are you familiar at all with urban farming, Chrissy?
No, but
I mean, basically I grew up with goats and chickens and stuff, but we weren't really zoned for that. So we got a lot of complaints from our neighbors. Is that kind of what it is, or no?
Well, in Salt Lake, I don't know if most people know this, you can have chickens.
Okay.
You can't have goats.
You can't have roosters, right?
You can't have roosters.
Because they're noisy. We did look into seeing if you could have like a pig or we don't really have the space for it, we realized, or a goat.
Pigs are awesome, though.
But we like bacon. So we thought, what better way than no. So basically, I don't know. Urban farmer, gardener, there's so many different words you can
urban
use.
Gardening sounds so cool.
Yeah.
It's very
When you break
modern.
it down, basically what we do, I live right in Sugar House. The property that my fiance owns we're on about 1/4 of an acre Sugar House lot, basic Sugar House lot. There's a front house, and then we live in a little mother-in-law house in the back. We've got 13 chickens in our backyard. So 15 is the max you can have.
Wow.
So why don't you max it out? Why did you stay at 13?
We did have 15, and a raccoon brought it down to...
I feel like sorry.
No, it's fine.
Like
it happens. No. It's just part
Thanks
of...
a lot, Chris.
It's part of the whole thing. We've got 3 beehives in our backyard too. And we have taken all that could be grass basically and turned it into gardens as much as we can. We've got a greenhouse that we built attached on the side of our house. So it's crazy. My fiance, I have to give it to him. He does a lot of the work. I help out. We both are super
really into it too.
Yeah, we're
so
both
cool.
into it, but he does the bulk of we start in January, seedlings in our bedroom that then move to the greenhouse, that then move outside. We're the ones that are oh crap, now we started 30 tomato plants. We only want 5, and we're handing them off to our friends.
That's awesome.
Well, we'll take tomatoes.
Oh man, we'll totally take tomato plants.
So that's what we do. I mean, we do that, and we get as much food as we can get. There's actually a pretty cool, I gotta say, Wasatch Community Gardens every spring does an urban garden and farm tour here, and I think it's about a dozen or 15 people open their houses in the area here.
Really?
And you can go and see their backyards and see what they're doing. And there's some cool, ours gets put to shame by some of the people that are out here. And we have some amazing urban farm gardens going on. And you'd never know. If you walk by our house, our front lawn, honestly, and front yard looks terrible because we spend all the time in the back. But it's what we do. I mean, we pretty much, every day it's like go and get up and feed the chickens and clean the chicken coop. And so in that way,
what about
I live
the winter time? I mean, winter's really here around the corner.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do with all your stuff then? I mean, chickens just hang out.
Chickens
right?
hang out. They're good. Bees go into like hibernation mode. We pull all the garden that we have and pull everything that we have. And we have a compost pile too and throw it all in the compost.
Smart.
And then if we need the compost to move faster, I'll go to Sugar House Coffee, and they are super nice. They're number one. It's just they're nice there. At least every interaction I've ever had is nice. But they will go and let me. I'll be like, oh, can you just fill? Here's my 5-gallon bucket, and they'll take all the coffee grinds from the day, and like the pulp from the juices that they make, and they'll just give it to me. And like a friend worked at Jack Mormon Coffee Roasters for a while, and she used to just bring over bags, garbage bags full of coffee grinds that they would have. And
That is so cool.
it helps speed up the whole composting process.
That is really cool. Do you sell like your honey or anything?
We just
give it
started.
away, or-
We just started honey. Bees are the new thing last year,
Okay.
so we're only year 2. Our bees didn't survive last year, so like knock on the table that they'll survive this year. Beekeeping's super hard to do around here because I don't know. Bees fly a 3-mile radius from where you live, and we don't use any sort of pesticides, anything like herbicides like that on anything. Like we have vermiculture, so we actually have worms in a bin, and they compost out, and they create their own. They create some of the best like fertilizer there is in the world, actually. And so we do that. That's like the most we do. Or we have like, fish. They make like fish poo basically and concentrate, and then you can dilute it. And then
Really? And that's a good fertilizer?
it's super, really good. And we've got a little pond that we built too that has fish in it that will go over. We have a skimmer pond that then we can kind of, I'm like losing my words right now. You can overflow it, and it'll flow into that garden bed, and so it'll give some of the nutrients from the fish again in that pond into our garden bed. So we do all that sort of like crazy stuff. But bees, they're flying 3 miles from our house. We don't know where they're going. So if somebody's spraying like Roundup on to get their weeds off, and it's a dandelion, and our bee happens to land on that dandelion, that can poison our bee.
Yeah.
So last year we actually, one of our hives was got pretty much poisoned by they you can tell when they're poisoned. They do this thing where they're like, it's not a tongue, but it's what we would call a tongue.
Yeah.
Sticks straight out. Their stinger sticks straight out, and it's this very distinctive look. And so
do they bring it back to the
They
hive
do.
and kind of spread it?
they bring it back, and if they
Gosh,
found a
those
spot that
Suckers.
yeah, and if they found a spot that, say somebody sprays their beautiful roses with some nasty pesticide so that they don't have spots on them or whatever. Not that roses are necessarily a bee attracting pollen thing, but the whole idea is if they go and they find a spot that they think super cool, they're going to tell all their buddies, go to this spot, and if it's a poisoned spot, they're all bringing the poison back in to the hive.
That is hard.
The reason I ask is because I've thought about doing the local honey thing for allergies.
So good.
But,
Yeah.
I have tried it, but without success. But I'm wondering if like a more sugar house,
like
more
super local.
because all the honey I've had is like Utah County or even way up north near Logan.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if I got one here from Sugar House, if that would help me, because I'm kind of between downtown and Sugar House.
Yeah, I bet it would. I mean, I think that
I get itchy eyes in the whole 9 yards.
for local
Just,
honey, I don't know if you've been to the Honey Stop.
I've seen it right on about 1300
Yeah,
South
right by Liberty
and
Park.
500 East. I
Yeah,
think.
the guy Peter who owns that place, he's super into honey, and he'll do extractions for people. And sometimes he ends up having a little extra, and he'll sell that extra that people have. So sometimes he has that hyper local, like he can tell you, yeah, that came from Sugar House. Yeah, that came from the Avenues. Yeah, that came
wow.
from wherever.
So do you would bring your things to him and he would extract the honey?
He could. We actually do something called top bar hives, which is a little bit different. It's not the traditional box. It looks like a little coffin, honestly. Oh. And so we can just cut the the comb right off the bar that it hangs on that they build. And with a potato smasher and a paint strainer bag, we can strain and do everything ourselves.
Wow.
So yeah, our family got some honey last year. We didn't get that much. We probably only got about, and this sounds like a lot, but it's not a lot when you figure we had 3 hives. We got about 20 pounds of honey.
So you got a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a complete loss.
Man, you're inspiring me.
And you're gonna keep doing it. You're gonna keep doing the honey.
Oh yeah, and I mean, even the honey is like the cherry on top of the cake or whatever. What's cool is our pollination of all of our plants has been so much better by having the bees there. Yeah. And we have a bunch of mint in our backyard too. So you can even taste some of the mint and lavender and all that sort of stuff. So you can kind of taste those different. It becomes like honey? Wine almost. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're like talking about tasty notes and honey.
Can I try some eventually when you get some? I'd love to.
For sure.
Oh my gosh,
please
me too.
Let me know.
You guys will have to come over and see this crazy backyard we have.
No, I really would like to. And maybe go visit it and post it on our blog post ourselves, on the website.
It sounds like a magical place is what it sounds like to me.
We've kind of carved out this, and it's funny, I've listened to a bunch of these podcasts, and a lot of people talk about all the places they go out, and I barely go out. When I end up traveling a bunch for work still, and when I'm home, I kind of never want to leave my backyard.
Well, I don't blame you.
I wouldn't want to either. It's like you have all the best stuff right there.
Yeah.
Why go anywhere else?
And our backyard's gone through a total metamorphosis over the years. So my fiance was super into mountain biking growing up. And when he first bought the house, he converted the whole backyard into a miniature bike park. So he had like quarter pipes and like ramps. And so our chicken coop is actually built from the old ramp, which went from a bike park to like an RC car, like the little
radio control cars. Yeah.
But they make some super off-roady ones. And so they turn the whole backyard into a RC car motocross track.
Wow. Wait, did he like have people come over and actually use it?
His buddies would come over and they would all like drive their cars around and stuff. And
that's so fun.
So like the one ramp has stayed up, and now it's a chicken coop, and it's stayed up so that it's kind of our privacy from our neighbors. Because I show people pictures that aren't from around here and they think I live in the middle of the country. But in reality, I'm like neighbor.
Yeah.
Do you eventually want to get on more land? Is that a goal of yours at all, or are you do you like the city life but the farm life too?
I think what crushes me about living here is the pollution, and it's getting worse year round. And we could talk a whole podcast on just pollution, but it is such a crusher. I think we both have talked about wanting to be somewhere where A, we have clean air all the time, and B, have a little bit more space so we could have that cow or that.
Do you have like a dream place?
It's all over the place. I mean, I am from the East Coast, so in Vermont's a pretty beautiful state. So I think, I always go back there and I'm like, a cute little farm would be great here. And the culture is all about local and small and sustainable organic stuff. So, but I don't know, we have such a great thing here, and it's so convenient to live 15 minutes from an airport.
Oh, it really is.
It is.
People in Utah do not know what they have for that. No,
they don't have to drive 2 hours to get to an airport.
Yeah, that alone has been an amazing thing, and the other thing,
especially since you travel, fairly often.
Exactly, and as we talked about before we were recording, my Apple computer kind of is in the process of blowing up right now, and to have an Apple store, have 3 Apple stores within
driving distance,
exactly. Yeah, so the nice people down at City Creek today were took care of me with my computer and whatnot, and just being able to do that. I mean, when I lived in Vermont, that's a 2.5-hour drive, I think, to Albany, New York, which I think was probably the closest, or Burlington, Vermont, for the closest Apple store. There maybe like an hour and a half away, there might be an Apple like an Apple retailer type person.
Yeah. Someone you don't trust with your Mac. Yeah.
So the convenience of all of that, I have to say,
Salt Lake is a pretty cool place.
Is nice, yeah.
So you were a runner, you wrote a book, you urban farming, podcast. I mean,
Chief editing officer.
What else do you do? I mean, you probably have 50 other hobbies that we haven't even gotten into.
I am a total nerd when it comes to technology. I feel like I'm saying the Napoleon Dynamite right now. I love technology.
I love technology.
Which I think is what drew me also to podcasting. And I also work on a computer all day. So I love all that nerdy.
It's pretty amazing how
techie
well-rounded you are. Like, you love the outdoors, you love doing things, you love training, but you also love technology. That's kind of rare to find in a person.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to do a little bit of everything. It's like when I do something, and it's kind of been a flaw at certain times. It's like when I do something, I want to do it, I jump 2 feet in, 100%. I do it 100%. Sometimes I burn myself out on it. Like,
what do you do to, like, what do you do when the naysayers come at you? Do you have people who will be like, oh, you shouldn't do that, you already do too much? Or you haven't tried that, maybe you shouldn't?
Yeah, I just sort of just go to the beat of my own drum. I just do what I'm going to do anyways.
Well, that's awesome. I think more people need to learn to be like that because you're genuinely happier.
Yeah, and I think, I've failed a lot. So it's funny. I'll be on a conversation with like my mom, and my mom's like, what are you up to now? And I'm like, oh, I might have this opportunity, this opportunity, this opportunity. And I spout out 10 things, and maybe one of them actually turns into something that happens.
Yeah.
But
you chase as much as you can.
Yeah.
Right? And like devote to it.
I mean, you throw enough darts at a wall, eventually you're going to hit a bullseye.
Exactly. I love your mentality. I wish people would just try to be more like you. That sounds like I want them to change, and I do, because I think that's great.
Yeah, and I think I do have to say the situation that we have at our house with living in the back and we have renters in the front and stuff like that. So we have the majority of our, say, mortgage taken care of each month because of our situation. I mean, I live in less than 560 square feet of living space.
Yeah.
Myself, my fiance, our dog, and our cat.
You're very fiscally responsible, though. Like, you know how to manage all of it really well.
Trying, I would say it's definitely trying. Like I think almost everybody has some debt that's still trying to work out, all that sort of stuff. But otherwise, I think when you start to pare down everything, and I would rather, it's super cheesy, but I would rather spend my money on like going and doing cool stuff than
owning a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. And I hate cleaning. Honestly, I hate cleaning.
I like you.
So a big house to me is just a lot to clean, and I can't afford a cleaning person. So
you just keep it simple.
Yeah.
Well, right now, actually, sorry to interrupt you guys, but we're joined, like I mentioned in the beginning, Ryan, one of our Patreon supporters. Pull up that microphone there, Ryan. I'm going to have you. This is going to be kind of something different with the podcast.
We brainstormed this.
Yeah, there you go. You losing your voice too?
I just haven't spoken this whole time.
Oh, you're just sitting there. So anyway,
He's
like I said, Ryan was one of the Patreon supporters that was hanging out. Was it kind of cool to watch us podcast a little bit? I'm just curious.
I like it because I'm able to zone in and out at will, while you guys all have to focus on each other. No, I'm just teasing.
And you were making some notes. Well, we have a few more questions I want to ask Margaret, but I wanted to bring you in. Do you have any, watching, did you have any questions you wanted to ask her?
Well, first I have a compliment because, hey, you sound rad, so thanks for being in Salt Lake and coming on the show. It's awesome. I've never heard this phrase before, and I don't think I'm ever going to forget it, but I'm not sure whether it's going to be a band name or just something I call assholes. But the phrase tonight was uttered, fish poo concentrate. Apparently you can purchase this stuff. You can throw it in the back of your enemy's car without them knowing. No, I'm just kidding.
It does smell. It does smell.
It sounds like awesome fertilizer, but that made me laugh so hard. I was like, no way. You can buy everything.
That's the best insult of all time.
All right, for real though, you came from out of state and you were in the ski industry. I love skiing, and so do probably a ton of people listening to this. So where's your favorite resorts that you found here, favorite runs, and what skis are you on?
Do you want to hear something really crazy? I spent from age 2 to age 27 skiing. Pretty much that was the only thing that was my main focus in life. I moved here and I worked in the industry for over 10 years. When you work in the industry, everybody gives you stuff for free.
Right.
You don't ever pay to go skiing. The moment you have to pay to go skiing, I go, oh, this is an expensive industry.
That's one reason I've never started skiing or snowboarding, is because I couldn't afford it.
It's an investment.
So I end up, if I do get to go, luckily I've got some friends and some connections and stuff. So every once in a while I get like the hookup on like a day or whatever. So I end up at Brighton a lot just because I've got some friends that work up there and are nice enough when they've got the extra like buddy pass. They're like, come with us for the day. So pretty much Brighton, I would say. And otherwise, I've done a little bit of backcountry stuff. And ski-wise, I've got old skis now, so they're not even worth talking about. But I've got a telemark set up. I've got a backcountry set up. I've got an alpine racing set up, an all-mountain set up. Like, so I think I've got
awesome.
about 6 or 7 pairs of skis in my house or in our garage. I even have my old 210 downhill skis when I was still racing that are sitting around.
You were on 210s?
Yeah, and I'm 5'4".
Okay, so 210s are taller than me.
This is
those
like
are
Greek.
long skis. Sorry for
Way
anyone that's
over,
speaking
way over
Greek.
my head.
She's got an amazing quiver. Now, I always equated this. I tried to always buy more skis because whether, there has been snow or hasn't been snow, the size of the way they've engineered it, it really makes or breaks your day. If you're on the wrong ski, you're not going to have as much fun. And I started seeing kids just whipping past me. And then I got on these big skis and I'm like whipping past other people, and it just makes or breaks the whole.
Oh, yeah.
I try and say, ladies, it's like you don't wear the same shoes for every occasion or every weather.
You don't
It's
wear
like that was
flip-flops in the winter.
No.
Yeah.
Or your stilettos. And you don't wear your boots in the summer. So I'm proud of you for having all the skis.
You have any other questions there, Ryan?
Yeah. Any pleasant surprises when you came into Salt Lake? Like what were you expecting, and then what did you get versus what are you enjoying? I heard a lot of it, but is there anything you kind of were like, whoa, this is really shitty?
I think I've been.
Or this is amazing.
Yeah. I think, coming from Vermont to Utah, it's a very different cultural change. But I think I've been pleasantly surprised. I will say I live right in Sugar House, so I have to say that Sugar House has been like a refuge for me. Like I go out, my fiance's siblings live out in West Jordan, which is nice in and of itself. So,
But it's so far away, right?
But it's far away,
yeah.
and it's totally like little boxes. Everything looks the same. And so I like the diversity that there is in Sugar House. And like our neighborhood's totally diverse. We have we have Hispanic people like just down the road from us. We've got like your people that have been here forever. We've got, I don't know what they are. I think there's some kind of African, but she wears like the whole headdress and the whole dress all the way down. So they live in our neighborhood too.
Were you expecting homogeny when you came to Salt Lake?
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting to be pretty homogenous, and I've been pleasantly surprised with the diversity, like at least in the city. When you stay in this city, because I was pretty much all I knew moving to Utah was snow and Mormons. Yep. That's about it.
You have a saying, Chrissy,
I do.
that you came up with when we were actually a
I was
podcast
trying to pitch
movement.
it to people.
Yeah.
Salt Lake City, more than Mormons and mountains.
Yeah, boom.
Yeah.
There you go. I mean,
That's
so
it.
simple, but so true.
Like that's what our podcast is about. It's about getting past the things that everyone thinks about when they think about Salt Lake.
I'm going to have you actually, Ryan, hold the rest of your questions. I'm going to wrap this up, but I'm going to hold, if you have some more questions, if you have some more time, let's release this as a special Patreon episode with some more questions. We're going to chat with Margaret a little bit more, but one more question. Well, I have to ask you, any favorite places to eat in local favorite eating spots in Salt Lake?
My kitchen? No, I knew you were going to ask me this.
Are you taking reservations?
You mentioned this that you don't leave. You like to stay home.
Well, here's the other thing too. My fiance and I, we eat what's called, he's super strict. I'm less strict on what's called the ketogenic diet. So it's a high fat, medium protein, low carb diet.
Okay, so you don't eat out probably a whole lot.
So we don't eat out a whole lot, and it's all the meat we eat is antibiotic free, hormone free. Because there's some studies that goes into your body, and not to get off on a crazy other tangent. But anyway, so I will say, we just made a trek. It's kind of a trek from here out to Utah Natural Meats, which is, I can't even tell you exactly where it is. So Google it. You can find it there. They're open to the public on Tuesdays and Saturdays, but they have all antibiotic-free, hormone-free, local raised beef, duck, pork, chicken. Sure. They've got raw milk, just like Real Foods has raw milk as well. And so, but if I do go out, I do like Sugar House Barbecue. I like that a lot. I've been to.
They're delicious.
I just think it's kind of cool to go to, especially if you get people from out of town, because it's just kind of a cool, weird thing. Bodega.
Oh, yeah, Bodega, downtown.
Yeah, where you go like down the stairs.
Downstairs, you have to knock on. Shane Smith used to work there. That's where he was.
He was a bouncer
there. That's the first time. Local comedian. Anyway.
Yeah, it's so like a little bit more on the expensiver side. Like your drinks are $10 up. From there.
They got a loan.
But it's an experience.
But it's a cool experience and a cool place to take somebody.
Sure.
So I'd say that, and then otherwise, there's just all these weird little like places. Like there's that Greek place that's right off of 700th and it's called I forget even what it's called. It's like literally right off of 7th and 21st.
Oh, I know, the Mad Greek.
It's not the Mad Greek. It's a breakfast place. It's a little white building and they've got good breakfast and it's super cheap and there's never has a line.
We'll have to maybe check that out.
When you go to the park.
Do you know what that is, Ryan?
I'm about to Google it. I'm getting on my phone right now.
Well, we could talk about it on our when we.
So instead of going to park, when park has a line that's an hour long, there's some other good places that are kind of right around the corner that nobody knows about.
Don't know about. Run down the list how people can find you that are listening right now.
Sure. So the best thing to find me is you can find me on dirtinyourskirt.com. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, pretty much every social media, and it's all Dirt in Your Skirt. So that's the easiest way to find me. Follow what's going on. You can see pictures of my backyard on Instagram constantly.
Well,
I'm totally.
I must have not stalked
you
on Insta. I don't think I looked you up on Instagram. I need to.
Yeah, stalk Instagram.
Stalk. Well, we're going to end this part of the conversation now. If you have a few more minutes,
definitely.
We're going to record some more for a special Patreon episode. So anyway, thank you so much, Margaret, for joining us on the podcast.
No, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Anything more you want to ask her right now, Chrissy?
Oh, no, I'm just entranced.
Thank you so much, Margaret. What a great conversation with Margaret. I mean, like I said in the beginning of this intro, you were great in this podcast. I couldn't have done this episode without you, Chrissy.
Because I just like to talk too much.
So I reached out to Margaret. I found her through Twitter, like we mentioned in the podcast. And it's always nice to find a local podcaster, a local blogger.
Yeah, it's interesting because we understand we have similar challenges and it's kind of fun to go through them with each other.
But completely different challenges at the same time.
Yeah.
Go to iamsaltlake.com/247 for episode 247. We're going to put all the links that were mentioned in this episode right there online. Makes it really easy. I know a lot of people listening right now. You might be driving. You might be on the treadmill. You might be sitting in your bathtub. Who knows? But just go on to the show notes for this episode. Connect with her. Connect with Margaret. Let her know that you heard her on I Am Salt Lake. I love it when people, especially previous people that we brought on the podcast, are like, oh, I was here and somebody, mentioned that they heard me on the podcast. And it gives me a nice warm feeling inside. And I'm like, okay, this podcast is working.
It's making a difference. It's sharing everyone's
stories,
things that they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really great.
It's inspiring.
Like we mentioned in the interview, there's a special Patreon episode going up with more of the conversation with Margaret. Go to iamsaltlake.com/supporter to find out more information about Patreon, supporting the podcast, and how you can get some of the bonus content that we're going to be putting up there. I have lots of ideas. Again, it's just lack of time, really.
Yep.
And with everybody's support, we'll have more time, hopefully,
True.
Right?
And honestly, the bonus content is some of my favorite stuff.
It was so much fun to just leave the microphones going with Ryan, you, and I, and Margaret, and just talking.
Just shoot the shit.
More about her podcast, more about all the stuff she does.
Yeah, it was cool. Hey, and I want to talk about the launch party we went to last night for Honest John Bitters.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so we got an invitation to come and attend this launch party.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know
Me neither.
what was going to be all about. I knew it was going to be at the Mandate Press, which is a beautiful spot.
It's so gorgeous
Braxton's Barbershop's right there in there. Really nice place. And I knew, hey, you know what? This would be fun to get out, try some new products here in Utah, mingle with some people. Maybe we'd run into a familiar face.
Yeah.
Which we did. We ran
did.
into a few
of them.
people. But
Yeah.
these are some great bitters.
They are so good. I actually got in line 3 times to try 3 of the different bitters.
See, and I only had one of them. I had like the grapefruit gimlet, which was good. It was delicious, very yummy. But I was driving and I didn't want to overdo it.
Yeah, so you let me try them and let you know how they were. Thank you.
Absolutely. It was so, so Honest John Bitters, I guess, is kind of an offshoot of Bodega and the rest, which I know the Bodega has been brought up. I actually, in this episode with Margaret, she recommends Bodega.
Oh, that's right.
We talked about it. So, go check them out. They're right there on Main Street. Great bar.
And they invented this line of bitters because they needed a line of bitters to mix drinks in the Bodega.
So what better way to do it?
Yeah. They're and they have seasonal ones too. So you got to check out their seasonal bitters.
I looked around on Facebook though. Honest John Bitters is not on Facebook. I only found them on Instagram. So I was kind of shocked.
Oh, bummer.
They don't really have a Facebook presence. Otherwise I would tag them somehow. But it was great. And then Book on Tapeworm. I know you love that band.
Oh my gosh. Book on Tapeworm is so good. And you knew they were good. I'd never heard them.
That's what I was going to ask you. If you never heard them.
I've never heard of them, but I was excited because the name sounded fun.
The name is fun. The band is great. You were
so
impressed
good.
with their CD packaging.
I wanted to buy it just for the packaging.
Hey, so it
was like a pop-up book.
That's a note to bands. If you want to sell your merch, do something creative and different than what you
people
normally
like me
do.
will fall for it.
Yeah, well, you're a design nerd.
Yeah.
So yeah, Book on Tapeworm. They're out of Utah County. They're always playing the Velour down there. Well, not always, but quite a bit.
When they do,
I don't think they make it to Salt Lake very often.
I don't know if they do or not because they're new to me.
They're new to you, and
I hope they do make it up here though, because they're a band that should really get out and have people experience them more often.
Great live band. I want to talk about, so Chrissy, this is kind of a historic day for I Am Salt Lake. The day we're recording this, what is today's date? The 16th of October. 16th. So 1 year ago was the first ever I Am Salt Lake Live, which was a really, really cool experience.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk just a tad about that, if that's
Go
okay.
for it. Absolutely.
Because I might have talked about this in previous episodes, but it's amazing to see. Just in the beginning of this episode, we talked about the domestic violence live show that we did. We did the Connect live shows. I did 2 other live shows before you joined up with the podcast.
Right.
And then we have another live show in November. But it's just interesting to see how much has grown, even with this podcast over the last year, because I was a nervous wreck before that first live show because I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, well, the first time you do something, you don't know what to expect.
Or even really know how to do it. Like, how do I turn this podcast into a live show?
Yeah.
And so it's just been really cool to see kind of how the progression, to see the support from the community, to see the support from the listeners, the excitement for the live shows, the people sharing the live shows, the pictures, the upcoming, it's just been really a lot of fun. And I think it's probably one of the greatest additions for this podcast.
Oh, yeah, because people actually get to get out and meet the people they've heard on the podcast. They get to meet the people who have been on the podcast previously. Maybe they started following them. They really like their work. Here's a chance to come meet them in person.
And plus, I'll tell you, there's no better feeling than meeting a listener of I Am Salt Lake.
Oh, yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that real quick. I know you didn't get to go out to the very first live show.
I didn't. I remember the day, though. From my own perspective, I remember the day it happened, but I didn't get to make it.
So maybe the second live show that you made it out to, we can, when that day rolls around, I think it was January sometime, we can spark that historic memory. But let's talk a little bit about the next live show happening Saturday, November 5th at Hideout Pub and Grub.
Yes.
Who's going to be on that show?
Ooh, we have such a good lineup. Jimmy Martin from Geek Show, Kat Martin, the artist, Aaron Orlovitz, and Rich Wilson, the comedians.
Very funny comedian. Well,
they are so good.
I want to find out even more about them maybe at this live show, because I know Rich does a lot of painting as well. He's a great artist. He's great with wood.
Oh my gosh.
He's great with video.
He's ridiculous. I asked him, if you cut yourself, does just pure talent ooze out instead of blood? Because he can do anything.
And Jimmy, he does more than Geek Show. I mean, he's involved locally with KSL.
Oh yeah,
he does he's with our friends over at Mediocre Show. He does movie reviews for them. He's on the Arrow 103.5 doing reviews. He does reviews for Slug Magazine. And I mean, I'm missing a lot. I'm Big Movie Mouth Off.
Yeah,
I mean,
we just couldn't list all the stuff he did, so we just said Geek Show.
that's another. I mean, another guy that does a lot, and especially in our local community. I do want to mention our friends at Distillery 36 are going to be sponsoring this live show.
Yeah, they are.
So, I mean, this is a big deal. I don't know all the details behind it, so I can't share those quite yet. Mm-hmm. But give them some love, like we mentioned in the beginning of this episode. And come on out. Hopefully, they're going to have some stuff some swag maybe to give away. And
yeah.
Speaking of swag, I want to do a massive giveaway at the end of the show. So if you have a local business of some sort and you would like to sponsor an item or two to give away, get in touch with Chrissy or myself. Mm-hmm. Let us know what you have, even if you one item. I don't know. It doesn't matter. A book, a piece of art, a
t-shirt,
hat, a T-shirt.
Whatever. Yeah, just hit us up, and we would love to. It would be a great way to not sponsor, but get some advertising for your business.
Exactly, because you're going to be mentioned at the live show in front of the audience. It'll be on a recording later on, and we're going to make a website, a web page showing all the sponsors of that. So, or if you know anybody, let them know. Hit them up and.
Let's get your name out there.
Let's get your name out there. I think that's about it for this episode. I don't know anything more you want to talk about, Chrissy, before we run down the contact information?
Oh, man. I always want to talk, but I think I'll save it for the next episode.
Save it for the next episode. Let's run down the website, our website, iamsaltlake.com. Find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat. We're on all of them. Mm-hmm. We're pretty easy to find. We put ourselves out there.
Yeah.
Give them the mailing address there, Chrissy.
Our mailing address, if you want to send us, letters of hate or love, is 2225 South, 500 East, Suite 16 in Salt Lake City, Utah, 84106.
We also do have a voicemail line that you can call us up or text us. Nobody will ever pick up that number. 385-202-5926. That's it for this show, folks. Get out. It's going to be a fun week here in Salt Lake City. A lot to do, a lot to see. The weather's changing. We're going into winter. So get out and enjoy the city. Support local.
And love the city you live in.